What a week it's been for the Champions League. Could any side other than Barca have pulled off the comeback of all comebacks at the Camp Nou against PSG? And what about the Gunners? Bashed once more by Bayern for a 10-2 aggregate shocker. And I say what a week it's been, still plenty to come live on Astro SuperSport with the FA Cup 6th round and a whole host of Premier League games. We'll go through it all with my two guests, the best export from Liverpool since the Beatles, Steve McMahon, and the man with more haircuts than Paul Pogba, Asia's #1 pundit and birthday boy, Stanley Bernard. Start the clock because your Wonda Football Countdown starts now. Welcome, friends. I hope you're ready for the weekend. All aboard the Friday night fun bus that is your Wonda Football Countdown. We're live at 9 every Friday, 816 and 834, and of course now on YouTube. So even if you're not near a television set on a Friday night, there is no excuse. So much to go through on the show. And as always, want to hear from you. Your thoughts, please, on our Twitter page at Stadium Astro with the hashtag Astro Football Countdown. Stan, Macca, let's get straight down to business. I hold my hand up. I almost went to bed after Cavani scored that goal for PSG. But what a 2 days of Champions League action we had.
Well, I went to bed when AC Milan 3-0 up at half-time. Seriously.
Yeah.
I was in Australia and I
The
went to bed.
Istanbul game.
Yeah. And I woke up, I thought that wouldn't be beaten.
Yeah.
But I think the nature of the game, because it was the final, still overshadows this game. It's just only because it was the final. But it was a stunning comeback.
I think it's very much two different games, I would say. Yeah. In the context, good that you mentioned two different stages as well. And the circumstances was different because if you compare Milan, they were up 3-0. And then when Liverpool took over, they went all the way. But here, you had a stopgap. At some point, Barca looked like they were cruising, and all of a sudden, that one goal thought...
Yeah. Well, that was the key. The goal that PSG scored, it was almost two comebacks in one game, wasn't it? So it was incredible stuff. I think that the Twitterverse, all our Facebook pages, media outlets all over the world went into overdrive. People calling it the best game ever played, including none other than... do we call him the FAM president-elect? Is TMJ almost president-elect? He went on to the JDT Facebook page to say he thought it was the best game ever played in the history of football. Well, that's high praise indeed, and we'll come to that maybe a little later on in this part of the show, but let's look at the game itself. Because as you watch this develop, guys, could any side other than Barca have pulled this off?
Well, if you wind the clock back a week or two ago when Barcelona got thumped by PSG, and we did say, I think Stan was in agreement with me that if any team could actually make a comeback, it would be Barcelona. Well,
you saw the Suarez goal there. That's just after 3 minutes. That's shocking defending from PSG.
And it's 2 goals at the start. That's shocking defending.
Do we agree with the penalty decision? That was the first one.
Completely a pen.
100%. I was just surprised that the referee had to use his fourth official to decide.
And obviously, we'd already before that seen PSG denied what some people thought may have been a penalty for the use of the hand. Cavani missed some easier chances than that, but what a strike that was. And then it became the Neymar show, didn't it, with that free kick, this penalty, and then a wonderful ball for the clinching goal.
Yeah, the turning point was that, for me, was that free kick. Because at 3-1, it looks dead and buried. The game went quiet a little bit, even after that goal by Cavani. And you got to remember that PSG actually had 2 chances, Di Maria and Cavani, to put it beyond and past Barcelona. But as you mentioned, Cavani seems to scuff those much easier ones. And the more difficult ones, when he doesn't have much time, he seems to finish it instinctively.
Cavani scored his goal. The tie was over effectively again. So Barcelona had to start again. So for me, it was defensively, they were shambolic. It was like rabbits in the headlights. He didn't have a clue how to deal with it.
Not just the defensive line, also, and to be fair, it's the first time I've really been able to single him out for criticism, but when you look at the riches of PSG, the money they spend, I was thinking they must be the only elite club to have a first-choice goalkeeper who's not a full international. Kevin Trapp, admittedly still only in his mid-20s, but not even being capped by Germany. That's unusual in the modern age,
well, I'm not surprised watching some of the goals that went in.
And on the flip side, Umtiti, who has been a bit hit and miss at times, he looked like he came of age in that game, and he was majestic at the back for Barcelona. And going into the game, Luis Enrique said, and this was on the Tuesday, so it's a bit prophetic, we're a kind of team that if he didn't say you score 3, we will score 4. He said if you score 4, he said, we'll score 6. I mean, they didn't score 4 on the night in the end.
You look at that first game. They were not only beaten the fact that they played well and they got beaten by 4 goals that PSG just created and they were clinical. They were well beaten. It was a Barcelona that did not turn up. We rarely see that, but we saw that. And in the second leg, from the very start, 2 goals. I mean, as much as you speak about their defence, they were pressing this PSG team from the very start. It's also PSG's fault because they allowed them to press them that high, but they forced that goals.
You couldn't say anything different. Barcelona had to press them. There was no. It wasn't a 1-0 where they had to take the time and pick PSG off. They had to go for the throat. So they didn't have time to sit back and weigh things up.
Dumb if you do, dumb if you don't. All right, you go to a new camp and you attack while you're up 4-0. He gets bitten. And people say, what are you doing? Why are you attacking in Camp Nou? If you sit and defend, and you sit and defend, and you defend bad as PSG did, you get scrutinised. So who are you blaming? Players or manager?
Well, hold on. Who was the best player in the first game?
Di Maria for me.
So where was Di Maria on the night?
Well, negative tactics.
On the bench.
Negative tactics.
So he never played.
You're alluding this to the manager.
Well, yeah, exactly. It comes from the manager. The manager names the team.
Players like Thiago Silva. I mean, you go back to players like Martin Keown, and you listen to all the top players.
Stan, you just asked me a question.
They have leaders. You used to be a leader.
Yeah,
on the pitch.
but you just asked me a question.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to say, for me, that's where it gave the initiative. Although Barcelona didn't need initiative because they knew what they had to do. They had to be brave and they had to go and press. But it also sent a message to the Barcelona players. These are going to be negative. They're going to sit back. We haven't got Di Maria to think about.
But you say that, Mac. I mean, and obviously you're damned if you do and you're damned because you didn't, in a strange way. Unai Emery, who, let's forget, is at PSG because of his exploits in European knockout football with Sevilla. In the first game, they played 4-3-3. But having said that, if they'd have lined up 4-3-3...
An attack,
they would have maybe even have been more exposed. Exactly. I mean, you can't blame him for going...
In hindsight...
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
They destroyed Barcelona with the 4-3-3 formation. You just destroyed them. So,
but could you do that at the Nou Camp, really?
Well, I mean, again, we're always good in hindsight. Yeah. And they caved in because of the negative tactics. So, yes, if they get it right, and even if they win 5-1, Barcelona, they still wouldn't have gone through.
How much do you allude to that lacking of leaders? Thiago Silva, he's been lauded as one of the best defenders in the world of football. He was poor in the night, and we've seen him poor numerous of times. You go back to your era. Yeah. There's a lot of leaders on the pitch that decides things at that point instinctively. And don't you think that the players itself have to carry up their hand and say, this is not a 1-0, 2-0 scoreline, and completely you can blame the manager.
Absolutely.
4-0.
It's a piece in a jigsaw. It's a piece in a jigsaw. It's the first thing you leave Di Maria out, it sends a message. Second thing is the top players for PSG didn't know what to do. They froze, and when the chips were down, they didn't deliver.
The most damning stat of all the stats that were flying around, I mean, there were some spectacular ones concerning Neymar. Remember, they needed 3 goals from the 88th minute at Barcelona, and this stat's astonishing. From the 85th minute to the final whistle, PSG completed just 4 passes, and 3 of those were passes from the kickoff, so they were gimmies. So in reality, it's just 1 pass, which brings us back to the original question. Was it because PSG were that bad, or was it just Barca's brilliance? If PSG play like that against a Bayern Munich or a Juventus at the Allianz Arena or in Turin, would the same thing have happened?
See, you're 3-1 up with 2 minutes on a clock. Yeah. You've got to be able to have an outball. You've got to be able to play educated balls, not just try and keep possession. You've got to put balls down the
I appreciate, and you're making some very valid points to the criticism of PSG, and some of them, I think, are well-warranted. But with that said, is it just Barca's brilliance, or if they'd have played like that in Munich or in Turin against Munich? Guys, I'm asking the question.
To qualify?
Would that have happened if they were playing Bayern Munich or Juventus, just Barcelona?
Because for me, I could have done Real Madrid. No, Real Madrid could have done the same. Real Madrid are intimidating side to play against.
You can remember, at 5-1, they were still going out, At 5-1, Barcelona was still going. It's a good point there.
Well, 100%. Yeah. I mean, me and Paul Parker were doing the Benfica game, Dortmund, in the studio here. And before we were going to the end of the game, it was 3-1. So we come into the studio, but Dortmund, Dortmund Benfica. So it's 3-1 because it was a slightly delayed kickoff. We comes into the studio, it's still 3-1. by the time we were talking about the Dortmund game, it was 6-1.
It's amazing you should say that because there's a great piece. If you get a chance, go on Twitter. I'll make sure I'll get Stadium Astro to retweet this. They may already have done so. Have you seen the post-match interview with Thomas Tuchel? Says exactly the same thing. As the Dortmund players were leaving the pitch, it was 3-1, and they watched it in the dressing room unfold. Yeah. And like you're saying, it was absolutely astonishing.
So seriously, we came in like we are now, and it was 3-1. We're sitting here talking about the Dortmund, Benfica, and next thing, we actually switched on the screen here, and it was a goal, 4-1, then 5-1, and it was like
I think clearly what the game really shows, besides, I mean, it's an extraordinary game with world-class players, perhaps Messi, one of the best players to ever play the game, but you look at that squad, and you say that's 2 world-class squads there. There's a lot of winners, there's a lot of characters. But Neymar, at 3-1, the game went quiet. Neymar single-handedly took the game.
It's a good point.
Because with his free kick, and then he just raised his performance.
We're going to come to that now, of course, because the other key point for Barcelona across both games, really, I mean, he didn't exactly have a shocker this week, but he was anonymous in the first leg, is Lionel Messi, who we forget now is, 30+. Is this the moment that the torch was passed from Lionel Messi to Neymar as the key figure of that Barcelona team?
Firstly, I don't think so. I just think they've done this throughout the season. I just think your performance speaks for itself. What you're saying is not passing the torch. I just think it's Neymar's time to shine more than Messi at this point. This is what Messi does, what you're trying to say.
But no, it's a metaphor, Stan, because I think what you're seeing now is the turning point of Barcelona, where Neymar now is their most important player in front of Messi.
Actually, I don't think I've done it all season. They've only done it the last few games when Enrique's come out and said, I'm leaving. Now, take a leaf out of Barcelona's book, will you, Arsene Wenger? And maybe announce that you're leaving, and it might actually pick the players up. It might give them the lift and go out on a high. That's what I think has happened. They've scored 17 goals in the last 3 games. Yeah. Barcelona. So all season they've been very, very poor. It's only Real Madrid's demise in the last.
The Enrique point is a good one, but let's come back to that because you saw there the individual brilliance of Neymar, and it was that final period of the game. You see it in so few footballers. Messi in the past has done it. Steven Gerrard did it in that European Cup final for Liverpool, where a player looks at the game and says, we are not going to lose this match. And I think that's the moment. And I'm saying, I mean, you feel free to disagree with me. I think Neymar is now more important to Barcelona than Lionel Messi.
I think the records, and I've said this last season, Neymar beats Ronaldo by a country mile in terms of goals scored before so many games. He beats Messi by a country mile.
At the age,
same age, or less games for country and for club. So Neymar is not a big surprise. He's just now come to the fore a bit. What was special about Neymar for me is when he took the penalty, because Messi had already scored the penalty. So he's took it on himself to take that penalty.
And Messi's allowed it as well.
Yeah. Yes, well, he's exactly said, I want to take this penalty.
Ronaldo would never have done that in a million years with Gareth Bale.
He's almost took the ball off Messi and said, I want to take this penalty.
I mean, again, I'm not belittling Lionel Messi because, of course, in a strange way, what you've just talked about there and the fact that Neymar is centre stage while Messi apparently is happy to play a supporting role and let him take the penalty and the free kick, when they were his jobs without any shadow of a doubt in years gone by. Also, in a strange way, it illustrates even more the brilliance of Messi because he's individually brilliant and for the team he's brilliant as well. And it may be that they can coexist there in a way that Ronaldo could never coexist if someone overtook him or equalled him at the Bernabeu.
It's a blessing in a lot of ways. I mean, you look at Suarez as well. He plays a lot of those runs where he just allows Messi and Neymar. I mean, because he was very quiet besides that first goal, which was almost a fluke. But he does a lot of his dirty work, and you get Neymar doing it, and you get Messi doing it right now for Neymar as well. So it's almost a blessing that 3 players with such huge egos and reputation,
he actually run
they work together that well.
A top-quality fullback, Munier, he run him ragged. He run him ragged. Inside, he was falling over at the end, the penalty.
That ball from Munier.
He'd collapsed. Yeah, I know, but he was spinning. His head was spinning because
he had to turn 180 degrees.
He was all over the place.
Just going back to Neymar, just to wrap it up when we're talking about him, 6 shots, 3 of them on target, 109 touches more than any other man on the pitch, 4 dribbles more than any other man on the pitch, and he was fouled 8 times, so he was fouled more than anyone on the pitch. And that foul, the fact he was fouled more than Messi, that's very unusual, and that, I think, shows you he's not surpassed him yet because the history of Messi still has him up there. But I think that signified the passing of the torch. I think Neymar's now the main man at Barca. Do you, Stan?
Still Messi.
OK, still Messi for you?
I'd say it's still Messi, yes.
OK,
yeah.
We can disagree. Nothing wrong with that. We've got Twitter questions by the bundle. We obviously had TMJ's statement as well. Sean Wong says, was Barcelona's game against PSG the best ever comeback in football? If not, which game do you think was? You've alluded to this already. Do you think Liverpool's neutral ground one-off final was still more impressive?
I think because of the final, I think it will be probably remembered better than this. This was a fantastic comeback. No two ways about it. Different, but it's a one-off game. You're down 3-0 in the Champions League final. It's got to be the best comeback.
It was in the same stadium, but it was in 1999.
Yeah.
Manchester United.
That's more of a parallel as well because of the 2 late goals that came into play there, but they only needed 2.
But look, you look in the context of the game, United had no right to win that match.
Yeah. Well, Barcelona didn't have any right to win that 3-legged tie until the last kick of the game. And we also must ask you if it's the best ever game played, as TMJ suggests. I think that's a bit over the top, isn't it? Because PSG weren't at their best.
Well, it was so dramatic. It wasn't the best quality in the world, put it that way, because we watched most of the game.
Because it was one side.
Lacking.
It's completely one side.
Yeah, it was lacking in quality. It wasn't like a Humdinger, a 4-3, where we've seen lots and lots of games, or a totally out. I played in a game, we won 9-0, 9 different goal scorers.
Wow.
Now,
including you, I take it.
Well, yes, of course, yeah. And the goalkeeper.
Bruce Grogoblar. My producer's going to come in because I know we're short on time. I must ask you about the referee quickly because there were some penalty shouts given and not given. The German, Dennis Eitekin, was the ref. They're saying he won't be allowed to referee any more games in this season's Champions League because of that performance. Do you disagree with that?
So.
No, I don't disagree. No, I agree.
Rightly so.
It was poor.
Poor referee.
Yeah.
OK, great stuff. Right, we're going to come back in a minute and look at the other big story of the Champions League week, which is Arsenal's capitulation. And some of those goals from that game in the Emirates will feature in the 5 best Champions League goals of the week. But we start, and rightly so, with that stunning Neymar free kick. Back with Arsenal being bashed by Bayern in 2. Stay with us.
Now, what's Neymar got up his sleeve here? Oh, he's got something really special up his sleeve. Great goal!
Xhaka will get a yellow card in a moment or 2, but Bayern might have a 3rd goal by then. It's Douglas Costa. And it will be Douglas Costa to make it Arsenal 1, Bayern Munich 3.
Real threat, Cavani! That's the goal that PSG were so desperately hoping for.
Still alive here for Weigl. And that's a good-looking ball for Pulisic, and they've done it! It's the 18-year-old American.
Walcott keeps the ball somehow, and Walcott has a go and scores! He burst the hand.